6B. Panel 6B will be using this room. So the conversation will be shrinking civic space in West Africa, rethinking youth activism, protection, and resilience for inclusive governance. While the other room will be using, the second room will be for 6A. That is shift the power conversation. So if you're on that panel or you are the chair, please mobilize to the other room. Shift the power conversation in the other room. And this room will be for youth activism.
That also affects on gas for the whole after the south and community development. So we have community development, and of course, NGOs, donors were taking that staff back, taking money away from communities, but we were able to celebrate, to raise money in Africa for our communities, for our own medical care. We didn't have it us, nobody else can tell us how to care for one another. So there are resources here, we know that they are, and that's what we call in community platform. It's a conversation that is overdue, and it's a movement that is ongoing.
Thank you very much for that. Just to confirm and bring on board our online panelists and participants, Emerhi, can you hear us? Baruwa, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. It's much better.
Yes, I can hear you.
Fantastic. We are really glad to have you here with us and all the participants who are joining online. And we will be roping you into this wonderful conversation in a very short while. Just to mention that Olufunke Baruwa, who is online, is the program officer for Foundation. She's a distinguished figure in gender and development issues and currently holding the position of program officer for gender, racial, and ethnic justice issues at the Ford Foundation's West Africa office. She has been deeply engaged in public policy, gender advocacy, civil society empowerment, and governance for over 2 decades. And I'm sure she is really a critical actor when it comes to talking about how we should shift power, how the Ford Foundation is working for promoting the shift the power agenda, which is something we will be listening to from her. Then we have Erne, who is the Programs and Partnership Manager at the Africa Hub for Giving Simply, and she's based here in Nigeria. She supports an ecosystem of learning and collaborating in Africa and around the world by centering and amplifying the practice of African generosity. Erne is based in Lagos, like I said, and she is keen on fostering an enabling environment for philanthropy. And just to mention or highlight that Erne is actually one of the pioneership, the Power Fellows, a program that was initiated by the Global Fund for Community Foundation. And I was also, I still call myself a fellow. And so this is really a thing that we will be interacting with to really interrogate in detail this concept or this agenda of the movement of shift the power. I want to come to you. When Erne was laying the foundation, she really thought about the element of community owning our development agenda. I think you have to switch it on from the bottom. Great, it's on now. Great. Erne highlighted, the need for community, to own our own development agenda and promote it. And we have resources here. And knowing what Norsaac does in Ghana, we consider you as a champion in terms of actors in our respective countries on the ground who know what the issues are and can promote those issues or champion those issues. What is your perspective about shift the power, and how are you leveraging this framework, this movement, to make sure that things work for the people you work with or serve in your community?
Oh, thank you very much. Jimm, good afternoon to you and colleagues. Well, always interesting to have Jimm or moderator for that only will appreciate you but beyond your limits. So nice to have this conversation. Yes, a shift power. in fact, one of the things used to promote some kind of policy and then to ensure that people who are affected take center seat in shaping development and executing development intervention. So we have decolonization, the shift the power, among many others. So shifting the power, for me, is really an admission that there is power imbalance, but that power is located somewhere, and we have to move. And so that is the first thing that we need to establish. And to find out whether we agree that power is actually residing somewhere. And perhaps things that have influenced this kind of relationship that we are kind of talking about are shifting. You may want to ask yourself a better question. Is it because money is coming from a place where we seem to agree that power resided? Is it because of some instruction that we have received from this area over the years that we have come to conclude that power resides there? Or is it that we have failed to recognize power that we have and call ourselves beneficiaries of intervention? We need to nuance these issues before we even look at this. Yes, it's true that we have not continued or in the past to mobilize resources and share that with their serving counterparts. They will move ahead to decide what kind of development intervention that we are going to implement in the South. And in fact, sometimes it's not just about looking at which areas they want to invest in. They want to go into the specifics to find out whatever, you know, 5 years working in Nigeria, working in Ghana, what kind of goals are we going to be looking for? What goals do we have? What kind of objectives are we going to set for ourselves? So someone will be in the Netherlands, will be in UK, and will develop a strategy and say, for over 5 years anyway, we are going to pursue the following goals and objectives in the South. And then the next step will be, we are going to look for partners who will help us execute. They either issue call or they go online to search to find out who in Ghana is working in this area and can help us achieve this goal. You know, interesting. And who is in Ghana? Can we work with to help us achieve these objectives? No matter what you see, we will justify. And in fact, in most cases, if we attempt contextualizing the goals and objectives that they give us, they say, no, please do it as we instructed. And the person don't know who want the money. But though we understand the context that our interested in, so we put aside the attempt to contextualize the goals and objectives and run through them. So in implementation, we will be looking at what is it that we present. Are we making progress in terms of achieving the objectives that they have given us? And are those objectives relevant to our people? That is the kind of relationship we have been for over this year. In terms of governance, we will still have these organizations from the north developing organogram and sending that to the south. They tell us who the regional director will be. They will tell us in our country who the country director will be. In fact, they will determine positions that must be filled in our country to execute this intervention. That is where we come. What have been the rhetoric? And why is it difficult for us to shape power? Yes, I can see that we have recognized that power is actually somewhere. Are we thinking of sharing that power? And by sharing, we make provision to shape it, or we are just trying to take over, control our space. These are things that we need to also look at. Now, I was talking about governance. At some points, they say, okay, well, we are going to change the dynamic. We will ensure that a Nigerian becomes our country director. We are not bringing someone from the north. We have tolerated that for over a decade now. Now, they will move and say, we are going to localize our organization. Yeah, so it's actually a Ghana. It's a Ghanaian organization now. And the system that they put in place 2 decades back are still used to manage this organization. So it's just a matter of changing few things that we are actually looking at addressing. So the power still resides there. So you may have the Ashide Ghana, the Austrian Ghana, they would use any system in here to manage their organization, to manage the resources. In fact, in most cases, you have the parent organization developing what they call global strategy. And they will expect this country to take the overall goal and contextualize. That is how power has been used over the years. Now we're talking about shifting the power. Who has recognized that there's a need to shift power? I'm afraid to say that, yes, our colleagues would have come in very early in this journey. But to be honest with you, those who have recognized and are having this conversation more are our colleagues from the north. Few of us in the south here are talking about this. So when I'm interacting with them and ask, they say that they are tired with the power that they have used over the years and they're not talking about shifting. And ask whether there is sincerity in shifting the power. So it's not surprising that the people and the rhetorics have been with us now. Because we wonder whether they are actually ready to shift the power. And whether the dynamics will change if those of us from south begin to launch aggressive campaign towards shifting the power. Will it make any difference? I say yes. If we are able to build strong movement and understand the shift the power concept, I tell you, we won't be able to make a case or be able to push the agenda faster than we are currently seeing. What have we done? And maybe limiting it to my organization. I'm happy to say that I have been part of this conversation for some years now. I prototyped what I call participatory grant-making model under the Rainbow Commission. This is an international NGO. I made a case that participatory grant-making model is one of the ways that we can use the shape power. Why? Because the one who decides what their challenge is and the strategies to use in addressing the challenge should be at the center of development. And if some resources are going to come from the north, how the resources will come, when they should come, how to use the resources, the person should be at the center of it. And currently that is money. And I try to further make a case that there must be principles that meet our reality. So that when we are looking at grant making, we use the Southern principle to receive the money those dollars. And those were my justification. When I ask people at the local level their understanding of shape the power, their concern was the local organization, if you like, national organization. What do you understand by shape the power? They say, okay, we want you people, you the Ghanaian organization, the local NGO, to give power to us at the community level. So that is their understanding of what shape the power. Then I ask myself, am I really a problem now? Am I really a problem to the community? So once I look at talking about national level stakeholders and engaging our colleagues level to give us power, my people at the community level is telling me that they don't see any problem with another partner. They see me as a problem. And they have to really shift the power. I should shift the power to them. So it's not surprising that when I look at the life of actually a planned, the constant at the national level, and I say, okay, is my problem actually enough? Or is it about these people that I call delegated units? Because someone has delegated the responsibility and they also come to assume the position of a donor. So I think really my problem for some people that I have to the people of the Netherlands, the UK, and all that. To shift the power, the destination of the power is unknown. And we have to take that because if we shift it, we can shift power to the and locating the destination of the power is important. And so these things are engaged as we discuss the power. Otherwise, the rigorous will continue, and then the practice will enter. And so I think that shift the power, the concept is evolving. But we don't need to seek out, we need to get it involved, and we must do that as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that very strong call to action. And in your submission, you really highlighted the key role or the central role of resources in the dynamics of power. And Erne, I would like to come to you. Erne, can you hear me? Erne, are you there?
Yes, I am.
You are one of those African champions when it comes to local philanthropy or promoting efforts pertaining to local philanthropy on the continent. We're talking about shift the power. What is the place of local philanthropy in this equation?
Thank you for the question, Jimm. It's great to be here, everyone. And I'm sorry, initially, in case I was called upon at any time and I wasn't able to speak, it was because there were technical issues at the time and I wasn't able to hear the mic. Jimm might have said, I am quite interested in the ideal of local philanthropy and how it's really going to change the international development and aid system. And local philanthropy, just to say, would refer to, on the continent, for example, African philanthropy, and also trying to break it down further, knowing that there isn't just one form of African philanthropy based on your locality. There are traditions and practices, there are trends that we have across the continent, based on regions and the kind of communities, for example, and groups that we have that are indigenous to the continent and its people, you and I currently, and being able to really amplify this is important to me, and I believe important to the system, how the African development system is evolving, right? It's really important to us to be able to identify these sorts of generosity practices, to identify ways in which we can amplify and force more awareness of the power that lies within communities, right? The power that lies within the traditions and the practices that we already have, alternative forms of resourcing and financing, for example. And where I am currently placed with Giving Tuesday, Giving Tuesday is a global movement. I currently work within the more continental hub, the Africa hub, as the program and partnerships manager. And what I really do on a day-to-day is to sort of support leadership around different countries and how their social impact work is being done, how they give back to the communities, how they encourage generosity within their communities at both local, indigenous, grassroots levels, at state levels, at national levels, and being able to do this, I see more and more opportunities for very, very intrinsic shifts in how aid and development is being done. And the conversation is all going to be really insightful to listen to the previous speaker and the questions that he has brought up and how he has been able to center communities in how in his response, right, to the question that was placed to him. And in my work, right, in not even outside of work, like in my engagements within this space, within the movement, I believe there is progress in how, for lack of a better word or better words, the North and the South are beginning to engage around conversation in shift power, in shifting ideals, and then ensuring that when movements such as movements such as the Given Today movement interfaces with other movements, right, there are changes that I'm beginning to see when it comes to interfacing with donors, for example, donors within the countries that we have presence in, who are engaging with our leaders, for example. We see how communities are beginning to use certain terms, certain words, certain trends are beginning to pop up. As much as it is not widely accepted, the ideas of shift power aren't as widely known now, but they are, of course, more known than they were months ago, for example. And this is really important because it helps us be able to bring. So, as a Shift the Power fellow, right? There is what is called the Shift the Power Manifesto, and I'll probably put in a link later on. And there are certain ideals and concepts that are really key. Of course, equality, equity, cutting pillars of, solidarity, collective action, voice and participation. And I see these ideas even where in countries, for example, where they are not named, for example, among Francophone West Africa, where I do engage with leaders, right, in my network and in my movement, while they may not be able to explicitly name these things with the names that we have given them, they are able to leave these ideas. They're able to, these are the ideas they are looking for at this time when they engage with donors, when they engage with even amongst themselves, when they engage at national levels, for example, engage in response to crisis, right? For example, in Burkina Faso, So there are things that are really becoming really amplified, and it warms my heart. And this conversation is so poignant at this time. And I'm glad that this is a space that we can really speak to it. And we have persons like Olufunke, on ground and essays to really speak to these things because they are gaining ground, they are gaining momentum. And it's important that a lot more local organizations are beginning to be centered in the conversation.
Thank you very much, Erne, for that brilliant contribution. And I like when you called up on Olufunke. And Olufunke, I'd like to invite you into the conversation now. I think our raised an important point that we can't shift power to the battery, and we know, from the little about the great work of the Ford Foundation. I know you've been doing a lot that resonates with the spirit behind the shift the power philosophy. So, Olufunke, can you tell us, what are some of those strides that the Ford Foundation is making to put organizations in West African countries, for example, at the center of development, as Awai described? Olufunke?
So I'm not sure if it was just me, but Jimmy, you broke up for a while. Yeah. So I mumbled up for me. Can you just repeat the question? Sorry.
Okay, great. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Fantastic. And I'm happy because we can hear you 5 on 5. And the question is straightforward. We've been discussing around the need to put organizations in our respective countries and communities at the center part of development. If we are able to do so, then we can preach that we are shifting power. And from my fair understanding of the great work that the Ford Foundation has been doing over the years, you have a keen eye on having organizations in the countries you work in across West Africa, to be specific, to be at the center of those development initiatives that you are championing or supporting. So can you just tell us how this is manifesting in your work, and what are you saying in terms of gains, in terms of lessons that we can learn from?
Okay, I think I hear you well now. So you're asking about some of the initiatives that we are supporting that is helping to champion efforts to shift power for civil society organizations, particularly organizations in the Global South. One of the things that we're doing, as you are probably aware, is our weaving resilience work. And on our resilience work, at the Ford Foundation, our focus is at supporting, establishing localized but connected civil society resource hubs across 8 regions in the Global South. The goal of these hubs, of course, is to help create a space for civil society organizations to then be able to empower each other, and also to be able to share tools, expertise, and learning. We believe that this cross-learning would help leverage the kind of resources that can support these organizations to do better, whether financial resources or technical resources. That way, as a group and as a community of practice, they can build and also sustain their change and impact. Our Weaving Resilience Initiative, for instance, takes the center of decision-making, leadership, operations, away from the Global North, like we've been talking about, and right into the hands of CSOs in the Global South, who themselves are at the center of the issues and the challenges in the communities that they work in, and the peoples that they support, and on the issues that they program around. And it's also about not just talking about in the power, but also making targeted investments, in help shift power to those who are at the margins or at the fringes of society, who require these resources, technical or financial resources, to benefit the communities that they serve. So rather than just talking about it, and rather than just making it a policy statement, so to speak, we need to move beyond that to then begin to bring in the resources, the connections, the actual power, and leverage existing connections that we already have to make sure that organizations in the Global South have the kind of resources to fund the interventions that are necessary. However, we also need to recognize that there is local power, and harvesting the kind of local power that we have is also critical. Emme talked about how in the past we had some of these ways of mobilizing, different ways of organizing. What happened to those historical, local, powerful resources that we used to have? What happened to community mobilizing? What happened to even local philanthropy? Right now, we're talking about at the Ford Foundation also reaching out to local indigenous philanthropic organizations, high network individuals, to see how they themselves can harness the resources they have, but to targeted issues, so that we're able to measure impact. Because I also think that we're doing a lot in the Global South, but probably because we're not measuring impact the way that we need to, we're not able to find that middle ground to really say that we're doing much. If you also look at in the last few months, people have been talking about remittances and how we get a lot of money from those in diaspora in the Global North, and the remittances that come into the Global South. How are we working to harness some of these resources to really focus on targeted investments that can help deal with the challenges and the problems that we face as, as communities, as regions, as countries, and as a continent. Some of these resources have been proved to be much more than what is coming in as aid. And I will share that, as Emme also did, maybe a link later on in the chat room. But it's instructive to see how not measuring some of these resources and the impact that they make is making it look like we get more from aid. That sometimes is not entirely true. We just need to look beyond the resources that we see, the monetary resources that we see, and find our power in the community resources that we also get. But for Ford, at the Ford Foundation, we completely believe that power must go into the hands of those who are closest to the issues, who understand the issues, who have been dealing with issues long before our strategies and thematic areas came up. And make them be the ones, or encourage them to use their voice, power, and agency to lead on these issues beyond templates, plans, and strategies that organizations need to draw for their work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Baruwa. I hope it's okay calling you switching from Olufunke to Baruwa. It's just like switching from online to physical participation. So thank you very much for those wonderful submissions. And what actually caught my attention is when you talked about the need to make a targeted investment to help shift power, as opposed to having policy documents. There is one organization that ranks, when it comes to shifting power, but that right resides in policy documents that is close to 50 pages. And I want to bring that to you, Erne. There you go. Sorry, thank you very much. These organizations that hold the power, here we have Baruwa Ford Foundation recognizing the need to make targeted investments. There are many more power holders, particularly when it comes to financial power holders, who are not yet doing enough when it comes to building power to those at the heart of this issue. From your understanding of, the shift of power, actions or engagement, what are some of those things that are really preventing these organizations from releasing that power as much as we are preaching the effort to release the power?
Thank you. Before I directly answer that question, I do want to say one thing. I think the conversation around the power, if it's imagine now actually power, there isn't a template, a 5-step, 10-step thing that you do and power leadership. It really is a mindset change process. So you can give it to yourself, what do I want to change? Why is something like the way it is? What is the frustration? What is the challenge about what makes it better and take you, your needs, your organization that you are in, and then begin from that so you will look at for it. So it's not the global fund or over the movement or what it's very participatory branding is a method for allowing different perspectives to be heard and to have decision making in different types in ways that it's not just one person sitting at a desk somewhere in the world making decisions for things that we want. So, let's talk about why it's difficult for NGOs to really embrace it. It is about it went with me about the things we have to fight for their own authority to make neutral. So if they want to find policies for it, that will how we will need basis. The reason of the question what you hear about and they have to be obvious. One they can transform their own because there is a role still that they can find that is unconscious. But in various forms, that data conservation is that also very guide and find a lot of things that you give up power, not power, so not share power, not share power, give power. And in fact, all the things that we are calling or as they will really realize that relevance and they are knowing that not that it lasts century, for the last 50, 70 years, no longer lasts. So they transform, they die well, or they die well. And we look at the options. So we this revolution happened. But I think, it is, like this conversation is about power. Power isn't something that we all know this. Power isn't something power isn't something that is given. It really is, I think some people have said, maybe I'm not shy as well, maybe it's not sure of power, maybe it's the power, maybe it's the power, whatever it is, whatever magic term that will work for you. And like Erne mentioned at the beginning, there are multiple sources of it. So there are some covenant. You have to be global, you have to be organization, eventually, it doesn't matter what it is still acknowledging of the beginning that something is true. And I think if they slow process, that's the next one. It starts that, we have to sit in that discomfort. It's also for us. And I think it's also an idea about romanticizing community rules. We are not one thing. We all have issues. We think communities know that it's important in how school children are not support parents. The same community and advancing in education, not to the so we can check the same questions. They want to read and have the same pain issue for the same challenges. So basically, you can still have issue with corruption again, but you can have issue with ownership, you can still have issue with governance, democracy. So it's not a split. It is something that's going to happen. And just how the pipeline is like peace, 19 years old, the shipping movement has made that landed like future. Yes, it's going to be what's happening.
Thank you very much for highlighting that it's a process. And it will be good to hear if we have any questions or if we have any observations or remarks to share. It will be in Senegal, pour perspective. Si je dis qu'on a le chiffre de power, parce que parfois, il tourne. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm just inviting our brother from Senegal. It will be good to hear from Senegal, what they think, how it's manifesting there, because sometimes it is predominant within the English-speaking countries or communities across the continent or the region. So yeah, we'll begin with you, please, the So let us just see those who have questions, please. And for participants who are online, you can drop your question in the chat to all those who are from Ghana, from Nigeria, all those following from Ghana, from Nigeria, from Cote d'Ivoire. It's good to have it here. So if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat, and we will do well to bring your question, to read your questions or take your question, in the room. Meanwhile, we have 2 questions or 2 observations to take from here, and then we continue the conversation. We basically do that.
Bonjour tout le monde, merci pour l'appeler à Nous avons joué les féliciter les panélistes qui ont vraiment fait au travail et qui ont bien analysé la question concernant le développement au niveau local. Effectivement, c'est un défi pour nous, dans les autres pays. Et nous avons un problème quand même au niveau du développement local. Et que, effectivement, on a l'impression que c'est des gens qui sont laissés pour le compte. Et qui vraiment on peine à faire se développer. Et aujourd'hui, on voit en conséquence, en déplacement, une masse de population, c'est tous les jeunes viennent au niveau des grands biens pays qui intéressent, malgré les potentialités qui existent, on n'arrive pas. Et le problème que nous avons identifié, c'est au niveau de des capacités de gestion au niveau local. Ça, vraiment, c'est quelque chose qu'il faut renforcer à travers des dialogues entre le local et le national. Bon, c'est une forme une circulation dans les deux sens. Donc, puisque nous savons qu'il y a de l'expertise au niveau local, mais qui n'est pas bien utilisé. Et ça, vraiment, il faut insister ce développement. La conséquence que nous vivons aujourd'hui, c'est le fait que les jeunes ont délaissé le local pour s'installer dans les grandes villes. Et là, c'est ça qui amène ce qu'on appelle aujourd'hui l'immigration immobilière. Et bon, tant plus que pour le pas. Et donc, voilà des conséquences. Il faut vraiment nous penser maintenant du développement au niveau local. Bon, je pense aussi qu'il y a aussi des problèmes au niveau un problème de cohérence économique national vis-à-vis des locales en général. Et également, il y a des problèmes de santé d'usage. Montrer aux gens que les gens aussi peuvent être dans des localités avec beaucoup de difficultés, mais s'il n'y a pas la sensibilisation, il n'y a pas la formation, ils ne vont pas vraiment en bénéficier et peut-être créer des opportunités pour se développer. Et je pense que ce qui est tout simplement avec d'autres, on va tenter d'autres aventures. Donc, c'est ça qui est peut-être abordé par rapport à l'éducation collective.
Thank you very much for those very rich contributions and perspectives that you're bringing, from your experience. Yes, please,
Okay, thank you. So, I think for me, the question around, I hear the points by on the decolonization struggle and all that we need to do to change power. But my question is, when I say we, at the community level, are we really prepared to take the power and give it to us? Do we know what to do with the power? I totally understand the fact that, it's a global idea, and they're pushing down their ideas, they're taking for us, they're telling us what to do. That's completely true. But I think that the other question will be asked, because this is the same analysis we made, and we fought for independence. And we took, we started doing ourselves. And now we have tried it, and now, so my question is, I totally understand that if there is need for that power to shift, but what are we doing with the power that we even have? So at the Ford Foundation, we try to demonstrate, if you move this power to the global south, let's see how that model will work. I don't think we are ready as a community, local groups to actually, because what then happens is that we take the little power that has been passed on to us. And we start another class struggle, another power struggle, another fight within ourselves. So I think the point that I want to make is, are we together in this effort to take power and to do what is beneficial to us with that power, and not to recreate the same system of power dynamics that we are trying to discover? I will keep it here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, let me take this as the last. Then we come. Yes. Both of you are talking. I will take the two.
All right. Yeah. So I'm trying to understand the shapes of our concept. It's sounding interesting, but I'll pick up from where the last speaker stopped.
Yeah, so I'm finding the conversation very interesting. I understand that it's an ongoing conversation and the part of this and I also appreciate the fact that one of them said the destination of the shift in the city is unknown now the sensor. So are you ready to ask to take this power? Then I'm asking, what is the power? Or what element of this power in the image from that time? Is it? So I see two relationships or two parties, the side of giver and the receiver. So what's the point concept of shifting the power? Do we want to make the receiver the giver? Or do we want to the giver as the giver, but then the receiver involved in making significant contribution as in how we solve it? Instead, or it's the receiver wanting to be the giver by receiving from the giver. Right. So I am trying to understand the thing about. Right. So I'm looking for some clarification with that. So what's the definition of power itself? Is it in giving of the resources, financial or technical, or the power is actually determining how those resources, how we contribute to determine how the resources are used? I don't know if I've made this decision anymore. Yes, I see localization here. And drawing was on a previous speaker's attention. It's a good idea, but also have the power. But I think we need to be honest with ourselves whether we are ready for this power, and whether we are ready to deliver. This call will also respect, and it has to be honest discussion amongst us. Why is it that we are where we are? And why is it that we don't need to be honest? And if getting to this, how are we expected to deliver? So it is a matter of asking for it, and then you are giving, and then the assumption that it can't deliver comes through. It will be a big share. The opportunity comes but once. Let's be ready to take this opportunity and make sure to make use of it.
Thank you. The last thing. Please 1 minute. Can you all right. So my own simple question would just be, okay, having heard the panelists and the speakers put some notes on the activities, their historical achievements, and how they have been in the space of understanding the shifts of power. And I think what's I don't know about any of my colleagues in this room, is your own definition of power. And what is the difference of shifting this power from one place to another? Is it shifting with the resources and the offices and the policies? Or thereby you can have a power somewhere and the offices somewhere else? Because I remember in the state of we in Nigeria where the office of the president of Lagos were Abuja. So let us understand that. I think we need more of your own definition when we do it on contributions. That's my own take. Thank you very much. Some very interesting questions. And Baruwa and Erne, yes, at some point I'll be roping you in. But I want to begin with you next. I think the element around the definition, or let me not even say definition, because it may make us to think within the rhetorical ambits, of this. But just to now appreciate the power we are talking about. What is this power all about and how is it manifest?
I do want to move away from the terminology. Yes, it's the shift of power movement, the combination of power, but I think we all at least accept or acknowledge that we know that it's wrong. That is the beginning of the conversation. That the system as it is broken. It is not fair. You can decide to stay in the system. There is that option as well. And you can decide to continue to live the legacy of injustice in a way that indignity is being replaced on both sides of communities and organizations. That is your choice if you decide to stay that way. Because if you follow the argument that if the power is shifted and we are not ready to see that, then therefore we have failed, that is a pessimistic assumption to begin. And so instead of going to fail. So when we are comparing, I think the example of decolonization and African states, I think that 60 years old and we want to compare to democracies of 200, 300 years, sometimes some 60 centuries old. It's not fair to compare a 50-year-old to someone that is of a state that is going through close to 300 years of democracy or understanding of the station. So I think there is an element of a narrative there. In terms of what the power looks like, it's power for communities, power for community-based organizations, those that may be registered, maybe not registered, but they know how to problem solve. So power is when you give over the decision-making completely. Tell us how you would solve this problem if you didn't have unlimited resources. And the resources we're talking about, if we go to the Grand Bargain, OECD, that remember global North organizations who promised that 25% of the trillions of humanitarian aid will make it to global south. Of that 25%, 7% makes it to NGOs. NGOs being global North organizations based in the global south. 7% goes to them. Of that 7%, 7% comes to the global south. Of that 7%, 6% sits in the headquarters of NGOs. Of that 6%, we are talking about 1% that we are all revenue for. 1% of the 25% promise to global south makes it to Nigeria, makes it to Uganda, makes it to Kenya. So now we're talking about a lot of money at the end. This is out of the 1% of trillions globally and for human there. So when we think about that and you look at that number and see how, the appearance of giving aid, the appearance of maternity aid does not really sense us in the first place. And when you look to your left and your right and say, what can we do? Now we do this ourselves. Can we build this soon ourselves? Can we build the laws as education ourselves? Can we design for ourselves what this looks like? And we not start with perfection, but we can verify. Because the plan is to pay attention to building the things like the platform. But at least beginning that conversation, and I think for me, the comment that you made earlier is that in Africa, the term shift of power is still an emergent new term. So there are no pushbacks. But it's not a new term what's in there. It's not a new term in Southeast Asia. It's not a new term in Eastern Europe. They have been having the struggles this 20 years, a lot longer than we are having a sit down alignment in the sea, but it's not a new thing. And like Erne mentioned, Africans have been mobilizing resources when they exist. Philanthropy, to whatever it is, we have instances here, and we go with us, really show us every day.
So thank you very much for that. I want to bring you to touch on the question how we prepare.
Yes, before I answer that question, the power, my colleague said, is not physical thing that just so to move to the south. We are feeling the manifestation of how power is expressed. It's what we are feeling now and calling for a review of that. We have the capacity to decide objective that we want to have for the program. How we are going to measure impact. Currently, that is not the case. Are you familiar with the situation where someone will send you your kid? Maybe from UK, you have everything that they said that you implement. What are they showing you? They have the power. Why are they having the power? They feel like they have money. They are recognizing that you have power. You have the knowledge of the context is power. How come they are not appreciated that one? So we are just talking about redefining of rules. It's not the same someone should get out and not be part of the table. I want to see who should be part of the conversation. That decision should be led by those affected. That is what we are talking about. So it's not to say that now we have enough resources to address our own issue. But it doesn't matter. How we define these resources are also important. And we shouldn't just look at it and see the one giving money to decide things that should happen. Of course, we must also look within to mobilize resources and say, look, if it is money, this is what we also have. But even if we do not come to the table with money, we tell you that we come with valuable things that we must gain qualify and understand. And these are some of the things that we are talking about when we say shape the power. Who says we are not ready? When are we going to be ready? We are ready to. We are not done. We have ideas. We know what we want. We can design schools that get enrolled. We can design poverty alleviation interventions and execute it. Can't we? We can set indicators and measure this. What's achieving our objective? Can't we? So how come that we are in doubt as to whether we are ready for powership or not? Have that kind of courage. And we believe in ourselves. We should invite the people who matter to the table and say, look, we are ready. These are things that we are not looking at. We are drawing attention to them, and we must work together as partners, and not one as beneficiary and the other as a master.
Thank you very much. Olufunke, are you there, please?
Yes, I am. And I've listened to all the points. I would not want to belabor the issue. I think the question about power and where it resides is, we all know an African proverb says, he who plays the drum, he who plays the drum dictates the tune. What's that proverb? I'm mixing it up. But it's also recognizing that without some of these issues that we grapple with in the global south, many of the organizations who are philanthropic organizations will be out of business anyway, including us. And I remember when I was at the USAID, we had an administrator who always said, we're not doing our job. And we would wonder why. And he said, if you're doing your job, these roles should no longer exist. Aid should no longer exist. When there is no more poverty, sicknesses, diseases that the Global South can no longer take care of by themselves, then we will be doing our job. Until then, we need to work ourselves out of a job. And the measure of success is how many of us in these roles as program officers, senior program officers, directors, and what have you, of different organizations across the world. The more those jobs dwindle and the more the problems we're taking care of reduce, that's when we can actually say we are really doing our job. So the motto then was, we need to work ourselves out of a job, and that's how to measure impact. That said, I think that moving from talk to action is pretty much what we are all trying to talk about today, and how to work towards placing power specifically in the hands of locally based organizations who understand the problems faced by the communities and the regions that they serve. And because most of the time they are the ones who have lived through these issues, when I talked about strategy, work plans, templates, and the rest of that, we could design them. But the better way is to ask these institutions, these communities to generate them. That's the place of co-creation. One of the ways to shift power is by designing strategies and interventions with, not for the Global South, but with the organizations that we fund, rather than for them. Because for them means that we are taking responsibility, taking power, we have the money, we have the, the resources, we have the access, and we believe also we have the technical expertise to solve those problems. So it's like being the judge and the jury in your own case. But uplifting civil society organizations and providing the tools that they would need to also be able to expand their funding base from other international donor organizations beyond the existing support that they have from organizations like us. Towards that, Ford, for instance, has been championing what we call build funding. And it's our institutional funding that is flexible, multi-year, unrestricted funding that allows organizations to really invest in the projects, in the programs that they originally were set up for, beyond the annual or biannual, 2-year, 1-year project-based funding that many organizations get, which really doesn't allow organizations to really work towards their thematic priorities, but they're just following the money. And so for me, shifting that power is about trusting local institutions with multi-year funds, with unrestricted funding, with flexible funding to be able to do the work that they were set up to do. If their priorities align, we should move from the temptation of projectizing everything and projectizing development, which is where many institutions are very comfortable with. But Ford is doing beyond that. Yes, we're still giving project funding, but we're also recognizing that there are organizations whose work really align with our strategy and who have the kind of resources that they that are multi-year, that are flexible for them to invest in develop their institutions, even governance, program, strategy. Over. Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Erne, can you hear or see anything? I can't see.
Okay, I can see and hear you, and I can see and hear Jimm. It would seem like you were cut off from, but not from us.
Okay. Oh, I was cut off from the mainstream. Where did I stop, Jimmy?
The beginning of your brilliant submission.
You said?
Right from the beginning of your program.
Oh, my days. I am so sorry, but I cannot see you anymore. I can only see Erne. I can't see. I can hear you, but I can't see anyone. Okay, let me summarize. I was talking about there were some conversation and questions around where is power? How do we shift power? Where does power reside? And I was talking about how philanthropic organizations, donors, bilaterals, multilaterals, and the rest, including yours truly, have the resources, sometimes the technical expertise, and because of that, we sort of control the narrative. And that shifting the power means that we need to recognize that there's already some form of imbalance because we have these resources, and sharing the technicalities around how we administer these resources, co-creating ideas. I talked about the resource hubs in the beginning, which is where I mentioned investing in those, making targeted and intentional investments that will support local organizations to really power, not coming on a high horse. We're giving power to the global south. No, these organizations have been doing this work. They've been mobilizing, they've been organizing, they've been agonizing, as the case may be, around specific issues and topics long before institutions like us even develop strategies or thematic priorities. So understanding that there are two sides to every coin. Even when you have money to address a problem, you may not have the solutions to address that problem. So there's power on both sides. Balancing that power and understanding that money is just one small part of addressing development challenges. And actually the people who understand the problem, who live with the problem, who know the problem, should have the better say. And that's where co-creation comes in. I then talked about how Ford has gone a step ahead, and I'm sure there are other organizations doing the same, by investing in flexible long-term funding, which we call BUILD. Our BUILD funding is an institutional funding that provides multi-year resources for organizations beyond the project year-to-year funding that is quite popular, even though we also still do that. And the BUILD grant helps organizations to be able to invest in issues that are germane to their setup. What are the thematic priorities of this organization? What is the theory of change? How do we invest even in institutional strengthening, even in their governance? Many grants, many project support money don't invest in those long-term issues. Our institutional funding helps organizations while they are focused on the thematic priorities, maybe whether it's women's empowerment, whether it's violence, whether it's natural resource and climate change, to focus on those issues, but also to develop and strengthen their organizations at the same time. And then I'm just trying to summarize. I hope I don't miss some things. And then I talked about moving really from that rhetoric talk to action. And I think I itemized that in the beginning. Is investing in those, is providing targeted investments, investing in those structures and systems that will really shift the power. It's not just about saying, oh, shift the power, you are more involved in how we make decisions, but co-creating these ideas with locally based organizations who completely understand the problems. We sit in our ACID offices, whether in New York or in Lagos or in Nairobi or Dakar or Accra, but sometimes we do not understand the problems faced by the affected regions, faced by these communities, because most of the time they have lived through these issues, they live in these issues, they understand them. So how do we then invest in the tools that would help them access, resources that are more flexible, that allow them and give them the leverage to do what they want to do without necessarily prioritizing resources from year to year. Incentivizing the shift, the power narrative is the way we need to go to really make this happen. Thank you. And may help me out with anything.
Thank you very much for coming. I think the first foundation needs a round of applause. Thank you very much. And some of us are doing this way. There you go. So one last word, and maybe we'll begin with you, Erne. What should we take out of this conversation? Moving from this conference. Erne?
Thank you. Thank you. Because that's what I've been thinking about. Please let me know if I'm audible.
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. Because I've really just been listening and just trying to learn new things and see. I've been in a couple of these conversations, right? And there's always something to refer to. And for context, I like how Funke ended. She said, incentivizing the movement is really the way to go, right? And I think what that boils down to for me, right, is incentivizing local organizations. So like I said, prior to 2020, I hadn't encountered the phrase shift the power. Okay. And I think there are still a lot of organizations, for example, here in Nigeria. Okay. I think my video has ended. Please let me know.
We can please continue.
Okay, great. Then. A lot of locally led organizations, right, like I had mentioned, have not encountered this yet. There are people in the room who ask, what is power? What is shift the power? What are the ideals behind shift the power? What does it mean? Every week, someone asks me, okay, so what kind of power are you shifting? Right? Why do we need to shift power? Why can't we share power? Why can't it be hashtag share the power? Why can't, there is always something, and it's always interesting for me to listen in, to even hear like when people say, oh, there's no need to shift power, it's fine, because it makes you see how people think, right? And how the organizations might as well. But I think what is a good takeaway would be, yes, for donors, really it is time to begin to find ways to incentivize the ideals, right, of shifting power, the ideals of introducing new ways to do things, just as Ford seems to do. And I am also aware of other INGOs who are beginning to revise the usual way of doing things, or what used to be the usual way of doing things, who are beginning to say there's power that lies in community. There's power that lies in local organizations. I can look through the participant list here. There are people who own organizations. There are people who are part of local organizations, right? Who know what they are doing. But who, when placed side by side with someone who is more northern, right, might begin to even doubt their own MEL processes, might begin to doubt their projects and their programs, because for some reason there seems to be a supposed standard as to what a project should do or how it should look, the outputs to measure the impact to, and all that. But those are the kind of things that we're trying to move and step away from, right? And even for Giving Tuesday, I could almost say I'm lucky, but it's not luck so much as in, because I also believe that these are things that should be normal right now. The way that we view impact, the way we call ourselves a movement, the way we refuse to fall into certain things, because things around compliance and risk and all that can now begin to cloud the actual kind of philanthropy and generosity that you want to see. That's something that I think today we have tried not to do. And it works for us. And I believe if it works for us, it works for so many other people, but we just have to begin to allow them have their own voice, participate. Okay. Thanks for the point.
Thank you very much for that concluding remark. Maybe we'll just take 1 minute. What should we take from this conversation?
I can do it in a couple minutes. I think, this conversation is reminding me of the behavior of being polite when you're talking about dignity, right? We should be bold to be able to be proactive and to be able to take power, right? So that's what this conversation is about. It's this conversation about power. But sometimes we act like, well, maybe give me a little bit of power, so maybe I can do this little thing that I know that I can do. It's still you're asking for permission. This is not a conversation about permission. There's a conversation about rights. What is your rights as a community to own your own decision, to make your own decision, to move forward? So I think for me, it's continuing to vote, to be able to take power, to share power, and not to be apologetic about it.
Yes, Awai.
Yeah. We should not be apologetic about it. This is our community. The power of the year, and we must expect work. This is not a time for talking about sharing up. I mean, we have to demonstrate that we know what power can do for us as a people. And then why we are looking for it. And why we must demand. Talking about capacity building, I think that yes, like I was talking about in terms of capacity, yes, I'll go for capacity sharing. Capacity sharing is certainly better than talking about capacity building. We have some capacity, we have, let's share. So capacity sharing is what I will go for, and not just capacity building. So I use that one is just in the empty head to be into some kind of sense. Thank you very much for the
Thank you very much. And on that, we have to get about one right. The call is for us to be on our projecting about taking power. Are you ready to take the power? Are you ready to take the power? We have to really discuss this thing. It is important to move from discussion to action, and that action lies on us. The organizations working in countries, in communities across West Africa, across Africa. It is our time to shine. It is our time to take the power. We have the power. The power belongs to us. We command the power. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Erne. Thank you very much, Awai. Thank you very much, Erne, and of course, Olufunke for your time, your insight, and the brilliant insights from all of participants. You will then continue to the plenary. And to all our participants online, thank you as well. And see you in the next session that will focus on the changing the order of priority and shrinking civic space in West Africa. Thank you and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoy.
Thank you.